Last one here. A pair of Hoosiers, except one team is actually called the Hoosiers. The other one just plays there. It's Indiana at Notre Dame, 8 o'clock on ABC. This one coming on Friday night. And these are two teams who, like I mentioned, they share Indiana, but they don't play each other all that much. They played just one time in the last 60 years, and that one time so happened to be 33 years ago. So I wasn't even alive. I mean, I was not even in the apple of my mother's eye. I don't even think my older brother wasn't even born when these guys were playing. So it's been a minute. It's been a little while. And neither of these teams really have played a particularly difficult slate here to this point. But this game is also a stretch of nasty streaks. Notre Dame, they've lost 10 straight bowl games, designated as New Year's Six games. So the Rose, the Cotton Fiesta, Orange, Peach, and Sugar. It's the longest such streak in college football history. This game doesn't carry one of those designations, but it is a college football first round playoff game. But on the other side, Indiana, they have only one win over a top 5 team ever. And that came in 1967. So overall, their record is 1-71 in that regard. Not very good. Not really good for either one of these teams, but like Abe always mentions, and he'll never fail to remind me whenever he starts talking here in a minute, those games, that doesn't really have a lot of impact on this game necessarily. It seemingly has over the last couple of years, and for Indiana, a little bit longer than that, seeing as they haven't beaten a top 5 team since my parents were alive, I guess. I mean, it's been a little while. It's been a little while for both of these teams, but look, the winner of this game moves on to play Georgia. I think both of these teams have had really, really good seasons, and you traded in the quality of opponent for just absolute sheer domination. These are two teams who win effectively by 4 touchdowns every single time they roll out onto the field. But now that they're going to be going up against stout competition, who wins the day?
Yeah, I think this is a very favorable matchup for both defensive sides of the ball. Notre Dame is 10th in the nation in running the ball. With Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard as well, the quarterback, they're certainly going to look to do that. Here's the problem. Indiana is the best team in the country by a fair margin against the run. I think they allow less than 80 yards per game. It's the best number in the country. Yeah. I think it's a very good matchup defensively, and Riley Leonard's going to have to open it up, I believe, with his downfield passing. And so interested to see how that works. On the flip side, Indiana wants to throw the ball. One of the best secondaries in the country belongs to the Irish. And so I think the defenses can win the day on both sides. And so I'm almost looking for little wins, right? Obviously, Notre Dame, statement drives, running the ball right down the throat of Indiana. You could make your statement. And for Indiana, finding chunk plays, converting third down, stuff like that. This is a fascinating matchup. It really is, because I just don't think people know that much about Indiana. And quite frankly, I think people wrote off Notre Dame after Northern Illinois and have not paid much attention to them either. And so it's going to be really, really interesting to me to see what sort of feel this game has. Weather may play a role in this one, but Kurt Cignetti, went on record and said, hey, like Curtis Rourke, our quarterback, is from Canada, man. He's from the frigid areas. He ain't going to be bothered by it. So really interesting matchups, though. I think Indiana's got a very good opportunity in this game. I think it's a little bit more favorable to their style of play than people want to admit. I'm not saying they're a better team and that they're winning games. I just think the matchup is not like crazily one-sided based on how these two teams want to play. Again, if Notre Dame, with that offensive line, with that running back Jeremiah Love, and with Riley Leonard's legs, if they can move the ball on the ground, it's going to be a real tough night for Indiana. But if Indiana can make some stops and get Notre Dame into third and long situations, they're going to have a chance in this game. And then the other aspect is Indiana's got to score. There's no doubt about that. They have got to score, and they've also got to play clean. We look at their one loss to Ohio State, essentially 14 points given up. Again, like SMU, on special teams errors. So they've got to play clean. But I think they've got a real shot to go into South Bend and win.
Yeah, no, I do. I agree with you. I think the weather favors the Irish, and I think the more the game wears on, I think the more Indiana is going to get worn down a little bit. Their worst performance of the season came against Ohio State in that regard, 129 yards allowed on the ground, but it was still a pretty respectable number. And I think that if Notre Dame wants to win this game, they want to run the ball as effectively as possible. They don't want Riley Leonard having to throw the ball all that much. That's just when they're at their best. Excuse me. But look, I think people underestimate the Hoosier defense. They think that it was just because they played lackadaisical opponents, and sometimes there's some truth to that, of course. But they're also at this point in the season, you don't get to your 13th game and pretend like it's some unfinished sample size. They still played college football teams. They still played a decent enough schedule, at least, that you look at those numbers and say, wow, there is at least some merit to that. It shows that they have the ability to do it. Now, can they do it on this scale? That's the biggest question for me is they have not faced, besides that Ohio State game, they haven't faced an offense that really, really, really wants to run the ball. And then on top of that, they're really good at it. And so Notre Dame, that the defense is really, really good, but that offense, I need to see it win the day if I think that Notre Dame is going to win this football game. Because on the other end, though, I just feel like Indiana might have some trouble running or moving the football to some extent. And if it shows up in the same way that it did against Ohio State, then Indiana is going to lose this game going away. I just really have a hard time. But look, they got beat. They got
I think the Ohio State game's wildly misleading because of the two special teams errors. I really do. It was 14 points directly on the board. They're in that game.
Yeah, they were in the football game, but you look at the other aspect of how the offense was completely and totally shut down. It was taken out of the game. They couldn't pick up yards. And it really wasn't outside of that first drive that they had. That they looked really good on that first drive. And then really down at the end of the game where they were just effectively marching out the clock because they were comfortable with the score line. Outside of those two drives, the offense was eradicated. It was done. And Ohio State, I mean, they just sort of leaned on Indiana. And then it was the fact that, like you said, the special teams debacle took them out of it completely, really. And then so at that point, Ohio State didn't really have to do much else. But the thing is, that's really our only game that we could base anything on. They don't really have anything else that we can look at, because there is no marquee win on their schedule. There just isn't. And at least Notre Dame, you can see what they've done against a competent Army team, a competent Navy team. You saw what they did against Texas A&M in College Station earlier this season. So at least there's something to fall back on to some extent, right? So I wonder how much that's going to affect Indiana in this game, but they're coming in here with a chip on their shoulder. I think they're fully capable of winning this game.
Oh, I don't see. That's the other thing. I don't think there is a chip on the shoulder. We talk about playing with house money. I think certainly Indiana should feel loose. There is no pressure on them to go into South Bend and win. That doesn't mean the players don't want to win or the coach isn't, trying hard. But I think that the potential of them not feeling the moment and just being themselves could also play its own factor.
Yeah, and this Notre Dame defense too. They've been beat up. Howard Cross should be coming back in this game. That is a big deal for them. Let's move into a pick for this game. What do you think? Go ahead. What's your pick?
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating game. I am still going to give it to Notre Dame. This is tough for me because I obviously badly want to see Indiana win, and I think this is a game that could go either way. I think Riley Leonard, though, is a guy that we don't talk enough about being able to win games with big plays with his legs. I just think that's the difference in this game.
I agree. I think Riley Leonard is the key for them in this game. I mean, I'd like to see Jeremiah. I mean, if I'm Notre Dame, I'd like to see Darian Price and Jeremiah Love get going. That's that tandem in that backfield that are really, really good. But I think that next level is found when Riley Leonard gets out and he just starts making plays. And when he can get out there and just sort of free ball it a little bit, if you will. So I agree. I do think Notre Dame wins. I think it is a close game for about 3/4, and then Notre Dame pulls it away. And then they cover the spread. When it's all said and done, maybe a win by 10, 14 points, something like that. But it's going to be something where I think Indiana hangs around for a little while, and then I think Notre Dame's just going to win this game. just with their physicality. And I think that's really that's what we have to. The sample size has dictated to me what Indiana is, and I think that it's no disrespect to them there, but I just think Notre Dame is the superior team in that regard. But we shall see.